Hey everyone! In this video, let's dive into some of the most useful tips for Path of Exile, especially for newer players who might feel a bit overwhelmed. There is a lot to learn in this game, but I hope to give you a solid set of tips that will hopefully make your time in Rayclast a whole lot smoother. These are all tips that I've used myself at one point or another. First, let's look at some good ways to get a 6-link. Depending on where you're at in your character progression, 6-link is a huge upgrade, and it can look really spendy if you're on trade, or it can be hard to get if you're on solo self-found. So one of the first things that I tend to do on one of my Atlas trees is I rush for corrupted strong boxes. This one right here, tamper proof. If you get this and then you add strong boxes to your maps through the map device or scarabs, or just by grabbing the strongbox node down here to make sure you have at least one, corrupted strongboxes will drop corrupted items, and corrupted items have a chance to have the max number of sockets or the max number of links or both. It's not super guaranteed. It can take some time to get it, but it is something that is just kind of passive while you're doing everything else to get ready. Maybe you'll get a 6-link. Now that 6-link will be corrupt, which means it's harder to change the colors, although it is not impossible. You can still use your crafting bench to change the colors, or a tainted chromatic orb to change the colors as well. So being corrupted isn't the end of the world. So that's the first way I tend to go. I grab essences for crafting gear, I grab strong boxes, and I try to grab the tainted or corrupted strongbox node. If that gets you your 6-link, or even if it doesn't and you've started to progress further where you've got more resources available to you, then you can move on to some of the other ways. Another way to get a 6-link is just by using fusings. One thing to be aware of is the quality of the item does affect how likely you are to get a 6-link. And then the crafting bench recipe, which we'll talk about in a second, is based off of trying to get a 6-link naturally at 0% quality. So in theory, you will save currency by spamming fusings on an item rather than using the benchcraft. But it is RNG. You can get lucky. I've done things where I've 6-linked in like 4 or 5 fusings. Sometimes it takes the full 1,500 that it costs on the benchcraft. And again, with a higher quality, that makes it more likely to have more links, and so therefore should be less than the 1,500 that the benchcraft gives you or costs. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you will get it. And that works for both the Jeweler's Orbs and the fusings. Having higher quality makes that better. I tend to not spam so much on the sockets because it's only 350 Jeweler's Orbs, and if you're getting Jeweler's Orbs regularly, which you should by picking up 6-links and selling them, this won't be too expensive. But this can be expensive. So that's the other way to get a 6-link, is using 1,500 fusings in a crafting bench. Doing that will guarantee that you get a 6-link, but it will guarantee that you use 1,500 fusings to do it. So depending on how much money you've got, can you spare the 1,500 fusings? At this point, a month into the league, fusings have gotten relatively inexpensive. So a chaos to fusings, it's 8 fusings per chaos. So if you wanted 1,500, that's 188 chaos. That sounds like a lot, and it is a lot early on, but you wouldn't do this early on. Generally, you would do this once you have some currency. Then there's beast crafting. There are beasts. If you go and you catch red beasts, the red beasts are the ones that matter the most. And you look through all the crafting recipes you've unlocked, you can see that one of them, and the Xeric Sand Spitter, the Black Morgan, that's the expensive one. So if you buy a Black Morgan or you happen to come across one, you can link an item by putting it in here and doing this Beastcraft. That often will be cheaper than the cost of the fusings. That's not guaranteed, but you won't want to watch the prices because sometimes the fusings get cheaper, in which case you should do the fusing method. Sometimes the Beastcraft gets cheaper, so you should do the Beastcrafting method. Another way is with omens. If we look at the currency exchange as well, and we look at omens, omen of connections here, you use one fusing on an item with this in your inventory, and it will max link it. So you only ever really want to use this on a 6-link or 6-socket to make it a 6-link. And this, you can see, is far more expensive than just buying the fusings you need to 6-link with fusings. So this is one of the situations where sometimes this is cheaper because it's very common and it's dropping a lot. Sometimes it's more expensive because it's more rare. Being more expensive than 1,500 fusings makes me think there's another use case for this, but I'm not 100% on that. Then there is the tainted fusing method. Let me see if I have anything that would be worth throwing a 6-link on. Okay, I'm gonna try this. So this is Death's Oath. First thing you would do if this was a 6-link is you check how much would it cost to just buy this before linking it. So 1.5 divines. Technically, it'd be cheaper to buy the fusings and fuse it that way versus getting it as a 6-link it yourself. So what you would do is you would chromatic it till it's the right colors, either by doing this or other methods for changing the socket colors. And then you'd corrupt it, hope not to brick it. Let's see. I bricked it. So being bricked, it's no longer the item I want it to be. I would start over. But it is a 5-link corrupted body armor, and so I'm going to do it anyways. To make it a 6-link, you can get tainted orbs of fusings. These tend to hover between 10 and 20 chaos a piece. It can vary a lot in the beginning of a league, and then it settles out later. 10 and 20 chaos is what I usually see them at. So that can make it a lot easier because you can craft it to, usually I go to 4. This one is already 5, and then you use a fusing on it. It went down. You right click, use a fusing on it. It went down again. At this point, what I would do is I'd put it in here, and you can benchcraft it back up to 4 sockets. And it, even though it's corrupted, you can still benchcraft on it. It just costs vol orbs as well. So I would do this, craft it back to 4 linked sockets. I just broke it, but I would do 4 linked sockets, and then you could go back, buy more fusings, tainted fusings, and then keep trying. And it's cheaper to spend. It's almost universally cheaper to spend the vol orbs and the fusings to benchcraft it back to 4 than it is to keep trying with the tainted fusings once you're down to 3. So bring it back to 4, use it again. Try it'll either go up 1 or down 1. It's a 50-50 shot. So it should on average take you 4 tries to go from a 4-link to a 6-link. And with the cost of the tainted fusings being right now under 10, so they're actually pretty cheap right now. It's on average 35 chaos to 6-link plus some extra vol orbs and fusings that you may already have and are also very cheap. So you could say it's probably on average 50 chaos max. to link it. Now, that does mean you have to corrupt it or buy one that's already corrupted, and that can be a risk. As you can see here, I bricked this particular armor, but that's fine. And then the last thing you can do is just buy one from trade. People are selling 6 links all the time because they got them through one of these other methods. And if you are in a situation where you have more chaos than you do time to work on making it 6 link or anything like that, you can just buy them. And that's what most people end up doing most of the time. You can use some of these methods to end up making money during the league by buying something that's used a lot, like the Cloak of Flame, that's used in a few different builds because of the 40% of physical damage taken as fire, and specifically in Righteous Fire builds, you're really capping out your fire resist, so that really makes a big difference to your physical damage taken. So you take one of these items, and then you buy it while it's either already 6-socketed or cheap and then has some decent stats on. And then you 6-link it, and then you just resell them. You will usually be able to sell it for more than it costs to link it. Some of the more random methods, it's a give and take. You might fusing it in, a dozen fusings. It might take you 2,000 fusings to link it. And so that can eat into your profits. So generally, if I'm going to do that profit crafting, I'm going to do a more or less random method. And the tainted fusings is less random and costs less on average, usually. Depends on the cost of the fusings. The next tip is coloring your sockets. So one thing to know is the color of sockets that you get on an item when using a chromatic orb on it has to do with the stats the item has. So this has a 36 strength requirement. So 36 strength is relatively low, but it is strength. So this is going to have a high chance of red sockets happening when you're randomly changing it with the chromatic orb, and a lower chance of green sockets and blue sockets, because those are strength, int and dex sockets. So most likely, if I chromatic this, it will change every time you chromatic it. So I got 2 green, 3 red, a blue, 3 red. Most likely, I'm going to see 3 red. And there is a site, the Vorisi calculator, that will help you to understand how this works. So if there's 4 sockets and my desired outcome is 2 green, a blue, and a red, and the requirement is, what were these again? 36 strength. And then hit calculate. It will tell me what the best method for getting this is. Using chromatics specifically, there are other methods which I'll show you. And it says if you've got a 4 socket, and you want this setup, and it's got 36 requirement on it, this is what the chances are. So this one will cost you the least. On average, it'll cost you 45 chromatics, a little over, to get that. If the strength requirement was higher, suddenly that shifts, because it's going to cost you 147 chromatics because you have 3 off colors, and it'll cost you 112 if you do it by doing the benchcraft of 1 green, 1 blue. But another thing you can do is go to your crafting bench, do the 1 green, 1 blue socket for 15 chromatics, and that's the last chromatics that we'll use, because then we go to, we look up socket, and then you go to 2 sockets, and then back to 3. And if you hold control when you click on it, it will automatically apply it. I'm like, oh, no, I need a green. 2 sockets. Nope, I need a green. 2 sockets, 3. Well, maybe if I needed 2 blue, that'd be good. 2 sockets, 3. I'm spending 4 jeweler's orbs each time, which you tend to have a lot of jeweler's orbs. And since red is the most common, I'm trying to get all of my off colors with these cheap ones. Um, and it's being a pain to get that green. There we go, got the green. And then you 4-socket, it's going to be all 4. And that's going to be a much more reliable, much faster way to get off colors, especially as the requirement goes up. This becomes far, far more valuable to do. I tend to do this mostly on the 4-socket gear. Gloves, boots, helmet. If it is a 3-socket gear, I tend to just chromatic spam or maybe use one of the crafts for one of the colors. And for 6 sockets, I tend to try to get the already correct socket colors because it can be annoying to get off-color sockets. If you need 5 off-color sockets, you're going to be going back and forth between 10 and 70 jeweler's orbs until that 5th socket. And I've done that and gotten 5 off-color sockets, and then you go to the 6th socket. The thing to know when you're doing this is when you're going from 4 to 5, it adds this socket, but it doesn't change anything else about the item. So you're not going to ruin your previous colors by doing that. And then you just keep doing that, and then you go to the 6th one and hope it gets the on color, which it usually should. Otherwise, you just got to do it, 1 or 2 more times. So that's a good way to get off color sockets on a piece of gear. I tend not to use that on really early gear. I try to find gear that works versus doing that. But if I have to fit a specific pair of gloves in and I need the specific socket colors on it, then I will oftentimes do this to get the right colors. Another tip is how do you know what you should be picking up and what you shouldn't? So early on, you might really be struggling to have a lot of transmutations and a lot of these early currencies. Even alchemies you can get by just vendoring items. Vendoring them, I think it's unidentified gives you transmutations, identified gives you alterations. It's got 2 modifiers in rare. I think that's the augmentation. There's a bunch of rules behind it for what you get when you vendor certain items. But they're always going to be these kinds of items. There's a couple of exceptions. If an item has 3 linked sockets that are 3 or more linked sockets that include all 3 colors, when you vendor it, you'll get a chromatic orb, unless it's also a 6 socket or higher, because that overrides and gives you a 6 socket will give you jeweler's orbs. If it's 6 linked, it will give you fusings. So the 6 sockets, I almost always, especially early, pick them up and I sell them to the vendor just so that I can get those jewelers for the previous tip to be able to color things easily or to get things to have 6 sockets in preparation for linking them. But the 6 links, you want to check, like, is this actually valuable? So you use a price checker, you verify that it's not, like a 2 divine item before you just vendor it. That's why there's almost always a floor to how cheap a 6 link can be when you're on trade, is because a 6 link is never going to be cheaper than 20 fusings in chaos. 20 fusings in chaos is like 4 chaos right now, and because of that, 6 links could be as cheap as 5 chaos. If it gets below 5 chaos, the people just take them off and they vendor them and they get the fusings instead. A lot of people will anyway. But that doesn't answer the question of, what all you should be picking up. That's early on. Eventually, you don't really need to be picking that up anymore. That's a waste of time. I don't need to pick up and sell things that give me transmutations. I'm never using 4,000 transmutations. I've already, incidentally, through picking up things that might be valuable, picked up things that turned out not to be valuable and vendored them and got plenty of currency. So what you do there is you get a loot filter. So Filter Blade is a website that helps you customize a loot filter, but you can go there and just use the built-in loot filter if you want. And I would just go to Filter Blade, click the normal never sync or should already be selected. You go to export to PoE. You do need to log in and verify your account. So it can link and sync it to your account, and you authorize it here. And now that it's authorized to sync things to my account, it will let me create a filter and sync filters. Now, I've already done that, and you can see if I look in my game window, I synced all of the different filters using Filter Blade, and so they're all in this list. The light blue ones are synced online, and so they will automatically update as NeverSync updates his filter. So you don't need to continually update these. You only need to update them if you're making changes to them. They will update every time you click on it. So right now I'm on Uber Strict. I usually start a league on semi strict, and then once I have enough currency, I will go through here and switch it to strict. And then as I start doing content that drops more stuff, then it's like, okay, I got 2 maps, and now I'm having to go in and out more times than I want to get the stuff that might be valuable. You just turn this up a little bit. What you, what I feel the best way to know what level of filter you should be on, in general, if you have to go back into a map to get more loot because there's more stuff on the ground, your filter is probably not strict enough. You should be able to leave with 1 inventory worth of items, and that inventory worth of items will encompass most of the value of the map. So if you're having to go back in more than once, then your filter isn't strict enough, and I would move it up. And then once you have it filtered enough where you're not seeing a whole ton of loot, that means the stuff that's still there is the stuff that is likely valuable. If they're rares that are on high value bases, and stuff like that. Now, if you're searching for a specific piece of gear, turning that filter up will automatically hide low tier uniques and stuff like that. So maybe you're looking for unique, so you want to run it a little bit lower, or that's where you can modify that loot filter so that it doesn't hide the lower tier unique that you're still looking for, especially if you're on solo self found. It is more worthwhile to turn your filter down or modify it to find those uniques. When you're on trade, oftentimes if it's hiding that unique, it's better to blast through the map and just keep going and get a couple of high value stuff that you can sell, which will cost more and give you the currency you need to buy the item you need. So, because if you're on trade, the trade economy plays a big part in the game. Picking up something that's worth 2 chaos is not necessarily worth your time if it prevents you from running enough maps and you would have made 10 chaos in the same amount of time. So loot filters are good. Run them as high as you feel comfortable, and at least high enough where you're not leaving with multiple inventories of loot per map. Another big thing to be aware of is vendor recipes. So not everything in Path of Exile has a crafting bench to get to it. So like there's crafting bench, the standard crafting bench, there's the hoarder crafting bench that lets you do that kind of crafting. There's the recombinator, but before all of that, there was just vendor crafting. And so what you did is you would go to sell something, and this is kind of where the chromatic comes in, because you vendor something that has the 3 different colors, gives you chromatic. I mentioned that earlier. But you can also do things like if you pair white boots with an augmentation and a movement speed flask, will give you 10% movement speed. You can accept that. And then you can vendor it again with another movement speed flask, and that'll move it up to 15%. And I believe you can go all the way up to 30% with that. The required level to wear it will go up. This was already a high level requirement because of the base, but so you may want to start with 10%, which you can use right away, and then go up to 15% as you gain the levels. This will give you some a base to start with, and because movement speed is a prefix, you can do that and then still have room to benchcraft onto it a resist if you need it to get your resist capped. So that's something that can be done. There's a whole lot of vendor recipes. Some of them will be useful for you, some of them won't. Some to keep an eye on are, you know, if you're looking for specific unique, sometimes there's a craft for it that will get you that unique. That will be cheaper. For a while, Lore Weave was a really highly sought after chest plate, and that's why unique rings will always be about a chaos because you can vendor in a full inventory. 68 is a full inventory of unique rings, and you'll get a Lore Weave. Um, there's a bunch of stuff here. Yeah, 7 jeweler's orbs for 6 socket items. You know, um, then there is crafting material ones. So um, I did this a long time ago. I don't really do it anymore. A gavel with any map will give you a chisel, um, 7 Vol skill gems, and a sacrifice fragment will give you a Vol orb. Um, so there's some recipes that way. If you over leveled an item, you can decrease its level by 1 with an orb of scouring. So you put the gem in and a scouring in there, it'll bring it down by 1 level. If you need to bring it down to level 1, which I do all the time, so I have a leveling build that I do where I use Bama, um, Blink Arrow of Bombarding Clones, and I level it as I'm leveling. And when I go to level a new character, what I'll do is I'll just take this regret and I will vendor these two together, and I will get my Blink Arrow of Bombarding Clones, still level quality 20, but it's back to level 1, so that I'll be able to use it on my next character while I'm leveling that character. And you could do it with all of them, but a lot of these are cheaper than regrets to just buy at level 1. So I usually buy the supports, but this Blink Arrow of Bombarding Clones is like 60 chaos, and so I'll use a regret versus buying a new one of the Blink Arrow of Bombarding Clones at level 1. And there's plenty more, so I'm not gonna go over all of them here. But there is one more I do want to go over, and that is when you're really early leveling right here. It's the Chaos Orb recipe. If you are really early and you just need to get your first few chaos to get your build online, maybe you're at 7 chaos and you need to have 10 chaos to buy the skill gem you need to turn your build on or whatever you need to do, you can sell a full set of gear that is between item level 60 and 74 for the lowest piece. Your highest piece can be above that, that's fine, but the lowest item needs to at least be 60 and no more than 74, and you'll get a chaos orb for it. If you leave them all unidentified, then you'll get 2 chaos, so you kind of double your value there. If it's all 20% quality, anything that can have quality is 20% or more, you'll get a third one. That's definitely not worth it. So most of the time, if I'm doing this, which I don't do it very much anymore, I'm doing this one for 60 to 74, all identified, get a couple of chaos. There are some tools out there that will help you to identify and gather the chaos orb recipe, but you really should be trying to move past this by the time you've gotten like 20, 30 chaos. Beyond that, in theory, your build should be doing well enough that you're going to get more just rushing maps than you will picking up enough gear to do chaos recipes. So, and then if you accidentally have everything at least 75, then you'll get regal orbs instead, which regal orbs are kind of nice. If you do need a regal orb to upgrade a magic to a rare, this is a way you can get it. But in general, the chaos orb is worth more. So unless you're SSF, you're going to want to do the chaos orb recipe. So that's an example of all the chaos orb or all the vendor recipes. There's a ton out here, but those are some of the more common ones. So next, let's go over the crafting options. So there's lots of crafting options available, but I'm going to go over the 2 kind of main ones that I tend to use the most, and that is just the standard crafting bench. We've talked about a few of the crafts here. There's lots of options available, and they're really great for finishing a piece of gear. I mentioned earlier putting your movement speed boots that have an open suffix and being able to throw some cold resist or fire resist. can really help. But also maybe you need a stat. Maybe you're need some more life. A lot of things that I end up crafting onto gear, which I don't necessarily have anything on this character right now. Well, here's one. This had decent enough stats for me, and I just needed to craft a little bit of life on it. This one had decent enough stats, but it didn't have movement speed, and so I crafted movement speed on there. Crafting to help finish an item can be very useful. There's a lot of options out here, especially if you're starting to feel weak or you're starting to die a lot. Maybe you need to check your resists and see if you can throw some resist or move stuff around. Once you craft something on, like if I were to craft onto this cold resist, which I'll just do a low level cold resist, you can craft it again. It just now costs a scouring as well. So it's like, okay, I got a 17 cold resist. I really wanted to get a 20 cold resist. Replace. Oh, no, 18. Replace. 18. Replace. 16. Oh, it's going backwards. 19. Oh, that's good enough. I'm good with that. That gets me cap or whatever. You know, so you can do some bench crafting, or maybe you need to change something that you had crafted to cold over to fire because another piece of gear that you upgraded gives you a bunch of cold. So you can shuffle your resistances around here. You can also use it to fill out your stats. And there's a lot of options out here. You unlock these by doing through the campaign. You'll find the crafting recipes, and then they're all in maps now. So I believe all the crafting recipes are now through the campaign or in maps. You used to have to go into like Delve or stuff like that to get some of the crafting recipes, but you don't anymore. The next one is Hoarder Crafting Station. So this one is good for crafting on gear if you need something specific. So maybe I'm looking for a lightning modifier in this helmet. Well, I can click on this and I can hit craft, and now you can see on the end these tags here. This gave me lightning resist, which has a lightning modifier. Well, that's not the one I was looking for. Do it again. Sometimes there's only one lightning modifier you can get. Then you're basically guaranteeing you're going to get that. You can use Path of Exile to better understand what options are available to you and what tags everything has. So when you're on Path of Exile, maybe I'm looking at a helmet, and this is a, what is this? A armor evasion. So that's a dex strength. And these are all the modifiers it can have. And you're like, oh, well, I'll put the item level. Maybe this was an item level 50 item. You know, now it shows all the lowered modifiers that it can no longer get at those levels. It doesn't have any of these influences. So mainly I'm just using these up here to see what I can get. And the tags are all on here. So for this one, the only option it has for lightning is lightning resist. So if I'm reforging lightning, I'm guaranteed to get lightning resist every time. There's also another key one is in here. Lightning. So change a lightning modifier, or change a modifier that grants lightning resistance to a similar modifier that grants cold. You know, or fire to lightning, cold to lightning, and then lightning to fire. So there, you could do change the resistances on a piece of gear where it's not even a crafted resistance. Maybe I don't need this fire resist on these gloves. I needed lightning resist. I could throw that in here and change it from fire to lightning for the cost of 500 life force. So there's lots of options here as well. Moving resistance around is a big one, but there's plenty of other options out here. And let's take a look at the trade website. So when you're using the trade website, you might be trying to check the value of an item. You might be trying to buy an item. And so how do you do a search? Well, you know, maybe I'm looking for a specific unique. If I'm looking for a specific unique, like Calandra's Touch, I can search for the name and hit search. And that's going to pull up all the Calandra's Touch rings, which are 13 Divine, which is less than I expect them to be. Maybe I don't want the Clonder's Touch. Maybe I want the chest plate that I'm using, Cloak of Flame. So if I do Cloak of Flame and search that, I can see there's a whole bunch of Cloak of Flames out here. There's a lot of corrupted ones. Either these are dropping corrupted, or somebody is trying to get a valuable corrupt on a Cloak of Flames to use or to sell. And being corrupted makes it hard to change the sockets on them because, like I said earlier, you can use it using bench crafts and tainted currencies, but that ends up costing a lot more than if you get it not corrupt. So this first one here is not corrupt, but it only has 53 fire resist. Well, there's a few things you can do. One thing you can do is hit this search button, and this puts all the modifiers up here, so you don't have to manually fill them in and be like, okay, you know what? I want it to have at least 70 fire resist, and ignite duration on enemies, I want this to be 55. I think those are both reasonable searches, and yeah, it shows all up. Oh, but I don't want it to be corrupt. Well, there's an option for that. You just say no corrupt, and it's going to filter all that out. You can see that, okay, having 70 fire resist jumps the price up by 5x. And then you can be like, okay, well, I want it to be a 6-link. So you put 6 links in here. Since it's not corrupt, you're not worried about the socket colors. And that jumps it up again, 1.7, 2 divines. So that's where, going back to a previous comment, you might want to buy the cheaper one that's not socketed and linked properly, and then spend your crafting currency to link it so that you have your 6-link. Because 1.7 divines, that's like 350 divines, or 350 chaos. And if you take those links out, you can get one that's technically as good or better for 30 chaos. You know, pretty regularly. There's lots of them out there. So you could buy this and you can craft it. Now, if you're doing the tainted fusings, then you do want to color it before you corrupt it. You want to quality it right away before you corrupt it. And then you just hope it doesn't brick. But even if you brick, when you use a vol orb on something, it could become a rare item. But that's a lower chance. It's like 20% chance. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's a low percentage chance of that happening. If that happens and you corrupts it, it's still cheaper to buy a second one, resocket it, recolor it. Unless you're going for a lot of off colors, because then if you're doing a lot of off colors, so maybe you need 5 red on this. There isn't even any out there that have that. Let me take off all the other searchers. There's only one out there. It's 5 divine for 5 red. So if you needed a 5 red chest plate, oh, this is not corrupt either. Let's do corrupted ones. Yeah, I guess you can get a 5 red unlinked for a divine. That's if you need 5 red, that's probably the cheap way to go. Buy this one for a divine, and then link it yourself, or buy this one for 2 divines and it's already linked. You know, so there's some searches you can do there. If you're searching for just a more non-unique, that's a more generic piece of gear, maybe I'm looking for a new pair of boots. So I will do boots just to make sure I'm narrowing it to boots. I will do any non-unique because I don't want a unique boots. I do want it to have at least 150 armor. I'm not going to put anything in for evasion energy shield because I don't care that it has it, but I'm not looking for it. I don't care about sockets and links because boots only have 4. They're really easy and cheap to change the colors, everything. So I'm not worried about that. I'll put my level in there because I want to be able to put them on right now, and we'll say I'm level 70, 8, I think, is where I'm at right now. Just to rule out the ones that are too high tier and won't let me equip them. And then I'll start doing stat filters. So there's a couple of things you can do. There's total elemental resistance, this percent total. These ones that say pseudo, those are taking everything on the item account, getting an aggregate number, and putting it out there. So maybe I want at least 60 elemental resistances, but I don't really care what they are because I'm willing to benchcraft or harvestcraft to change things around. And then I want it to have movement speed, and I want it to be at least 25% movement speed. And then I also want it to have life, and search for that. And only a chaos. Okay, that's great. From here, well, I didn't specify how much life. 37 is not a lot. What's the most life I can get on this? 181 life. Ooh, that's four divines. This one's only 80 for 174 life. Maybe I want to do maximum life is 170 minimum because I want as much life as I can get. And I have extra space. Let's do regen increase. No. See, and this is another thing. I don't remember specifically what I'm looking for, so I'm gonna put the tilde symbol on there, and that lets me do more of a less specific. I'm gonna do life and rate. Oh, that's live. Need life. Increased life regeneration rate. So that's the one I want. And I want at least 15. Let's see if this boot even exists. Nope. Then you can go and adjust this. Well, I probably have too much here. Let's just do 100. There we go. 10 chaos. It's corrupted, but again, you can still change the sockets and links on corrupted items. Maybe this is the one I want. I'll use this. You can also search for, well, I want it to have an open suffix. Because I need to craft something specific that people aren't generally crafting on it, and then I will go down here and say crafted as no. So I'm not removing something. So there's only one out here. It has what I want. High armor, high life, a bunch resists, which I can move this fire resist to any other resist I want. Already has movement speed, has an empty suffix. So doing that kind of search will really help things, help you find the things you actually are looking for. I tend to only put this elemental resistance, but if I really don't want to worry about harvest crafting or bench crafting to move things around, you could put in specifically cold, fire, and lightning, and how much of those resistances you need to hit your caps. I do this occasionally when I'm grabbing that last piece of gear. I've already bought a bunch of gear, spent a bunch of stuff. I don't have the currency anymore to do the harvest crafting, so I'm going to be, I need 60 total element resist, but I need it to be 20, 30, and 10. I'll take this off. And then I'm going to take off the MP suffix for now. And be like, okay, so there's 2 available to me. One that costs 40 chaos and one costs 8 divines. I'm going to go with the chaos one. So that's some quick search tips. The next thing I want to talk about is the labyrinth trial. Getting your ascendancies relatively early can be very powerful. So going through and running your labyrinth as soon as you unlock it can make a big difference to how your build feels. A lot of builds are designed around your first 1 or 2 ascendancy points before they really even start to take off. And so you want to grab those as quickly as you can. If you are struggling with labyrinth, what you can do is look at PoE Lab. This is a website that shows the current layouts. Now, it does take a while for them to update the site sometimes, so it's usually right after the daily reset, the layouts will change. and you might have to wait a bit before these are here. But if you click on normal lab, this will tell you the layout of normal lab, including where the dark shrines are. Dark shrines can give you a lot of power. You can get a lot of movement speed. You can turn off all the traps. You can give yourself the regen shrine or always crit shrine. You can make Izaro drop an extra unique or treasure key at the end. Or you can get an extra use of the divine font. The divine font is very powerful for getting a lot of money, especially early, because you can get use the divine font, get a transfigured gem that is a popular one, and suddenly you'll go from having no chaos to 50 chaos on day one of the league. So running through there can be very useful, and hitting the dark shrines can help you to have more chances at more things or just beat the bosses easier. Again, these reset once a day, so if you get comfortable or you find that there's a path that works really well, like this has 4 early dark shrines, maybe you want to do all 4 of these dark shrines, and then you can just rush through the rest of the map and you know get your use of the dark shrine. The other thing to be aware of is the crafts at the end. There is a very useful craft in the divine font that will turn a corrupted gem into a transfigured version of that gem instead of just a version that's that color. And if you get that one, and you have brought a valuable gem with you, you can actually pretty much guarantee coming out with a divine. You bring with the very popular uh, untransfigured version of a gem, and you transfigure it to the popular transfigured version of the gem, you can make a lot of money. Some gems have one transfigured version, so it's guaranteed. Some gems have multiple transfigured versions, so it's still a gamble, but it's way more likely than the standard one. If you don't get that and you don't want to gamble, you can also use this at the end to get quality on your skill gems. So quality is very useful. Um, on my righteous fire here, quality gives me more radius, so my fire gets bigger. So having quality can be very useful. A lot of times quality equals damage. A lot of times quality equals damage. And so going through a couple of times to try for the transfigured gem, and if it doesn't show up, getting some quality can be useful, because the um, other way to get quality is gem cutters, and gem cutters tend to be relatively expensive. So if I look at how expensive a gem cutter is, I have chaos. Yeah, they're more than a chaos per gem cutter's prism. Um, about a chaos and a half. So, and it's more earlier on. So it can be more and more worth running it to get quality early on. Um, Although getting the transfigured gems early is also good. And that's where knowing what to bring with you, if you go to PoE.ninja, which is good for finding builds and seeing how things are going, there's the economy tab, and you can go to where is it? Skill gems, and transfigured. And you look at the transfigured gems, and you can see that quality 0 to 19, level 1. These are the ones that are going to be worth the most straight from using the divine font at the end. It looks like Detonate, Dead of Scavenging is the most valuable one. Forbidden Rite of Soul Sacrifice is right behind it. Or actually, these are all the same. Panspran of Dissipation and Smite of Divine Judgment. They're all 200 chaos, a little under a divine apiece. So, and Frostbank and Winter, like all of these, Frostbank and Winter Blast is also right up there, and then it drops quite a bit. So it looks like if you get just of the same color, doing blue gets you the top 4 of the top 6. Um, but a lot of these only have one option. So I think like Frostblink of Wintering Blast, the only Frostblink you can get from corrupting a Frostblink, not corrupting, using a transfigured divine font on it is the Frostblink of Wintering Blast. So you could bring that with you. Whereas Smite has, I think, 2 different options. So the chance that you get the right Smite, um, I don't, that only has one. So Detonate Dead has 2 options. And so if you were to bring a Detonate Dead with you, if you got that really valuable craft, you're either going to get nearly a Divine or 5 Chaos. So picking the right thing to bring with you is useful, and using PoE Ninja for that is a useful tool. And that's an overview of what I think are the most useful tips for newer players in Path of Exile. If you found this helpful, leave me a like and subscribe. And if you've got another tip that I missed and think every new player should know, leave them in the comments below. If you want to see more Path of Exile content or just hang out while I grind, come check me out live on Twitch, link in the description. Have a good one.